Satan in the fighting ring. She transformed into a white wolf, and the entire court bowed. The city of Valdora slept under a blanket of golden lanterns and drifting mist. From the castle towers to the narrow alleyways below, every street echoed with the sound of life, laughter, and whispers. But beneath the glittering beauty of the city lay a place few dared speak of, the fighting ring. Bases. Its stone walls were scarred with decades of battles, and its air was thick with the scent of blood, sweat, and desperation. Elara stood in the corner of the ring, her hands wrapped tight, her chest rising and falling with controlled breaths. Around her, nobles in silks and velvet laughed at the men below, betting their fortunes on the strength of others. She was small, barely 5'6", with hair as black as midnight and eyes that reflected a stormy green. To the crowd she looked fragile, easy to break, but she had learned that appearances were everything in Valdora. Tonight, she fought not for pride, not for gold, but for her brother. Her younger sibling, Rowan, had been threatened by a ruthless debt collector, a man who held their small home and dreams hostage. Every fight Elara won meant another day of safety, another chance to keep Rowan from the cruel hands of the world. The bell rang, loud and sharp, and the champion of the ring stepped forward, a man named Draven, tall and broad-shouldered, with scars crossing his pale skin like warnings, sneered at her. Death. He had never lost a fight in 10 years, and never shown mercy to anyone who dared oppose him. Elara's heart thumped, not with fear, but with resolve. She raised her fists, muscles coiled like springs. The crowd roared, but she barely heard them. The world narrowed to the circle of stone beneath her feet and the figure across from her. The fight began. Draven's strikes were fast, calculated, like the swing of a predator. Elara dodged and weaved, her training keeping her just out of reach. But he was stronger, more experienced, and soon every blow landed on her shoulders, ribs, and arms. Pain shot through her, burning white and red in equal measure. She pushed herself harder. A spin here, a kick there, but each move seemed futile. The crowd jeered. Some laughed, some shouted bets, but the sound blurred into a single hum of mockery. The more she fought, the heavier her chest felt, not with fatigue, but with shame. A particularly brutal strike sent her to the ground. The stone floor bit into her skin, leaving a bruise already swelling. She struggled to rise, but Draven was on her, towering, his fist raised to deliver the final blow. Pathetic, he spat, his voice cold and cruel.
Is this all you have? Elara closed her eyes. For a moment, all seemed...
But then from the depths of her despair, something ancient stirred. She did not understand it yet, this feeling. But it was raw, untamed, and powerful. It was as though the very air around her hummed with a song only she could hear, a rhythm tied to her blood, her pain, and her longing. The strike landed, knocking the breath from her lungs. The crowd erupted with laughter and applause. But Elara no longer noticed them. Pain twisted through her, and with it something else, something old, wild, and undeniable. She fell to her knees. Her hands touched the ground, and the stone beneath her seemed to pulse, alive with memory. Bang. Whispers, song and silver, slid into her mind. You are not weak. You are more than human. Let go. Elara gasped. Her body trembled as heat and light flowed through her veins. She cried out, not from fear but from release. A storm of silver fur erupted along her arms and legs. Her fingers stretched into claws, sharp and shining. Her bones shifted, reshaped, until the pain of it was almost unbearable. When she opened her eyes, the world looked different. Taller, sharper. The crowd shrieked, some in terror, some in awe. Where Alara had once stood, a magnificent white wolf now towered, fur gleaming like freshly fallen snow in moonlight, eyes blazing green like emerald fire. Draven stumbled back, confusion and fear flashing across his face. He had fought humans all his life, but he had never seen this, never imagined it. And as the wolf stepped forward, the air seemed to bow to her. The whispers in the hall of stone and shadow grew louder, chanting in a language older than the city itself. The nobles froze. Even the king, perched high in his balcony, leaned forward, eyes narrowing. There was awe in his gaze, but also recognition. He had heard of legends, stories of the wolf-blooded, humans whose hearts could awaken an ancient power. Few had ever seen it, and fewer still had survived the transformation. Elara's ears twitched, catching every whisper, every fear, every awe-filled gasp. She did not attack. She did not need to. Whoa. Her presence alone demanded attention, and slowly, the nobles of Valdora, one by one, lowered their heads, bowing, trembling. Respect mingled with fear, but it was respect nonetheless. Draven stumbled again, eyes wide, heart hammering. What? He stammered. The wolf stepped closer, each movement elegant, fluid, terrifying. She could have ended him with a single strike, but she did not. Instead, she turned and padded toward the exit, her white fur flowing like liquid moonlight. The crowd followed her with their eyes, silent, knowing they had witnessed something beyond comprehension. Outside, the city streets were cold and quiet. Mist curled between the cobblestones, and lanterns flickered like dying stars. Elara, in wolf form, ran through them with power and grace she had never known as a human. The taste of freedom, raw and intoxicating, filled her lungs. She paused by the river, looking at her reflection. A wolf stared back, fierce and beautiful, but in those eyes was a human heart still beating, still aching. She had been humiliated, beaten, and mocked, but she was no longer powerless. Not anymore. The whispers of the ancient magic continued, soft and insistent. This is only the beginning. You have power beyond the crown. You have the strength to change everything. Elara felt a pang of longing. For her brother. For justice. For a world where cruelty did not define life. Her paws sank into the soft mud, leaving prints that glowed faintly under the moonlight, marks of something sacred, something ancient. And far above in the balcony of the royal palace the king watched. His face was unreadable, his eyes sharp, catching every flick of fur, every curve of movement. He had seen many things in his life, battles, betrayals, miracles. But this was different. The white wolf looked directly at him, unflinching. And for the first time the king did not feel superior. He felt challenged, mesmerized, and strangely drawn to the power he could neither touch nor control. "Elara!" a voice whispered in the shadows, almost carried by the wind, though she did not recognize it. "Elara, the court awaits. But you must choose. Will you remain the hunted or the hunter?" Her ears flicked back. She did not answer. Not yet. The moonlight glinted on her fur, and in that light she was no longer a fighter beaten in the ring. She was something more. Something the court would never forget. As dawn approached, the city of Valdora slept once more, unaware that its destiny had shifted. One white wolf had walked among them and left a trail of awe, fear, and whispered reverence. And in the heart of the palace the king clenched his fists, a storm of thoughts and questions rising. The hunt for answers had begun, and the city, the court, and even the king would never be the same. The wolf lifted her head to the sky, eyes catching the first rays of morning. Somewhere deep within, her human heart still beat. But the world would soon learn that the heart of a white wolf was not to be underestimated. And as she vanished into the misty streets, one thought burned in her mind. The court had bowed, but the fight had only just begun. The city of Valdora was quiet in the hours before dawn. Its streets glimmered with dew, and the mist wrapped the towers like a silver cloak. The nobles slept in their gilded rooms, dreaming of wealth and power, unaware that a new presence watched them from the shadows, a presence that could see through lies, fear, and ambition, a presence that did not forget injustice. Elara in her white wolf form padded silently across the rooftops. Her paws made no sound on the slick tiles, her green eyes catching the faintest glimmer of candlelight from the rooms below. She had returned to the city not as a defeated fighter, but as something more. A force the court had not expected, a being the legends whispered about but few believed. Her mind, still human, churned with conflicting emotions. She wanted to protect her brother, yet she also felt the weight of power flowing through her veins. The transformation had not just given her strength, it had awakened a connection to something older than Valdora itself. Something wild, something that demanded respect and demanded change. The streets were empty, but whispers of her presence had already begun to spread. Servants, passing through alleys or fetching water at dawn, spoke in hushed tones of a white wolf that moved like a ghost, leaving faint glowing tracks wherever it walked. Some claimed to have seen her bow to no one, yet the air itself seemed to respond to her presence, bending in acknowledgement of her power. Elara stopped at the palace gates. The guards were asleep, their armor clanking softly as they shifted. She sniffed the air and felt the pulse of the castle, the rhythm of the king's own thoughts. He had seen her in the ring, and she had seen him then, curious, cautious, and most surprisingly, intrigued. She wondered what he would do if he knew who she truly was. Inside the palace, the king paced his private chambers. King Alaric was a man who ruled with careful calculation. He had the sharp mind of a strategist and the patience of a predator. Yet, for the first time in his life, something unsettled him. A creature of myth, with eyes that seemed to pierce his soul, had walked in his city and commanded the attention of every noble. "The White Wolf! It cannot be a coincidence," he muttered, clenching his fists, breaths. His thoughts were tangled with curiosity and a strange thrill. He had seen many challengers, many fighters and magicians, but nothing like this. This wolf was different, alive, aware, and unafraid. More than that, it seemed to judge him. Elara slinked along the shadows, listening. She could hear the king's heartbeat from afar, steady and deliberate. She felt no fear of him, only curiosity. Who was this man who could sit so high above the city and command obedience, yet whose presence she found magnetic? She did not understand the sensation fully. She only knew that the court, the king, and her brother's safety all depended on her choices. In the days that followed, Elara moved among the nobles in secret. The wolf could slip unnoticed through walls, shadows, and doors, observing the court's true nature. She saw greed dripping from the wealthy lords and hidden cruelty in their smiles. She saw the courtiers who had cheered her defeat, the ones who had mocked her. And she also saw the servants and guards who treated each other with kindness, the people who quietly suffered under the heavy weight of the crown. Elara began to act, quietly, deliberately. A noble who had tormented a servant woke one morning to find his prized possessions shredded, though no one had entered his chambers. A merchant who had cheated a widow found all the stolen goods returned, placed neatly on her doorstep, and a silver paw print left behind as a signature.
Word spread like wildfire.
Whispers of the white wolf became both fear and legend. Some called her a ghost, some a spirit of justice, others a curse. And all the while King Alaric watched, fascinated. One evening, as the moon hung low and heavy over Valdora, Elara returned to the palace gardens. She crouched by the fountain, drinking from its cool water, listening to the soft rustle of leaves. She sensed someone approaching, a presence that was neither servant nor noble. "Who dares enter the garden at this hour?" a deep voice called. Elara lifted her head. There, leaning against the stone balustrade, was a man she had seen before. Lord Kalin, the court magician, who had been both advisor and enigma in the palace for decades. His eyes glimmered with intelligence, sharp and cautious. "I dare," she replied, her voice human but tinged with a low growl. "I am the one you seek." Kalin tilted his head. "You are not human," he said calmly. "I can feel the power flowing through you. The legends are true. The wolf blood runs in your veins." Elara's fur bristled slightly. "Legends?" she asked, baring her teeth in a gentle warning. "I am no legend. I am real, and I am not here to play games." Raised his hands in a gesture of peace. "I do not wish to fight. I wish to warn you. That power, it is dangerous. You are young and your heart is strong, but it is not yet ready to bear the weight you now carry." Elara's green eyes narrowed. "I have carried weight my entire life. My brother's life, my own humiliation, my city." "I am ready." Kalin studied her, as if weighing her soul. "Very well," he said finally. "Then, listen carefully. The court will not tolerate a force it cannot control. There are those who will hunt you, not out of fear, but out of greed. Your power will tempt them, and if you cannot control it, it will consume you."
Elara's ears twitched, absorbing his words.
She knew the warning was true. Already she had felt the wildness of her wolf form clawing at her human mind. Pressed, disbalanced, and disciplined, or lose herself entirely to the beast. The next day the court convened in the grand hall. The males dispense. Nobles arrived in their finest robes, masks of respect and decorum hiding their curiosity, fear, and greed. The king presided from his throne, silent, calculating, eyes sharp like a hawk. And then, in the midst of the meeting, the white wolf appeared, not at the door, not in the shadows, but in the center of the hall. Gasps filled the room. Silver fur gleamed under the chandelier's light, eyes blazing emerald. No one moved, no one dared speak. And then, the wolf bowed, low, deliberate, unyielding, a bow not of submission, but of power. The nobles froze, whispers turned to murmurs. Some fell to their knees, covered their mouths in fear. And the king leaned forward, intrigued and silent, his gaze locked on the creature that challenged the very hierarchy of his court. Elara's presence was a silent command. Every greedy noble, every corrupt lord, every whisperer of deceit felt the weight of her judgment. The court had seen her defeated in the ring, mocked and humiliated. Now they understood that their illusions of power were meaningless in the presence of something truly formidable. And yet, even as awe filled the hall, Elara felt a pang in her chest. For all her power, she was still human beneath the fur. She still longed for connection, for the warmth of her brother's smile, for understanding from someone who could see her truth. The king rose from his throne. His voice was calm, measured, but it carried authority that made even the strongest courtiers shiver. "This wolf," he said, "is more than a creature. She is a challenge and perhaps a lesson. Who are you and why do you walk among us?" Elara's ears twitched. Pause. Silent on the polished stone floor. "I am what you cannot control," she said. "I am what you fear, and yet what you need. I am here to protect the innocent, to punish the cruel, and to ensure that justice is remembered." A murmur ran through the court. Some lords gasped, others whispered, and some dared to smile, thinking they could outwit her. But the wolf's green eyes cut through every mask, every lie.
King Alaric's lips curved slightly, not a smile, but the faintest acknowledgement of respect. He had never seen courage like this, nor power so balanced with restraint.
And for the first time he wondered, could this wolf, this creature of myth and fury, be an ally rather than a threat? Elara sensed his thoughts. The wolf inside her growled softly, a sound of warning, of untamed instinct. But the human inside her thought of strategy, patience, and calculation. She would not reveal her full strength, not yet. Not until she understood the king, the court, and the true danger lurking within the palace walls. As she turned to leave, Kaelin's voice whispered in her mind, carried by the faintest currents of magic. "You have begun to shape the court, but your trials are only starting. The king is curious, but curiosity can be dangerous. Trust no one entirely and remember who you are." Elara disappeared into the shadows, leaving only silver paw prints glowing faintly on the marble floors. The nobles whispered in awe and fear. The courtiers bowed instinctively, and the king remained silent, pondering the white wolf who had walked among them and commanded obedience without force. Outside, the city of Valdora continued its quiet life, but the streets would never be the same. The wolf's influence had begun to ripple through every corner, reaching servants, merchants, and nobles alike. Stories spread of the white wolf who punished cruelty, protected the innocent, and could not be stopped. And somewhere hidden in the highest tower, the king watched the rising sun paint the city in gold. His mind was full of questions, but one thought burned brighter than all others. Who is the wolf, truly? And what will she demand of him and his court next? The hunt for answers had begun, and the game of power was no longer limited to swords and crowns. The white wolf had entered the court, and with her presence came justice, fear, and a legend that would not be ignored. The pale light of the moon painted the city of Valdora in silver, and the streets glimmered like frozen water. The city slept uneasily, whispering of a presence no one could explain. The white wolf had become more than a story. She was now a force felt in every shadow, in every quiet corner. Nobles spoke in hushed voices of her justice, servants told tales of her mercy, and the king, he thought constantly of the wolf, whose eyes seemed to see the truth of his heart.
Elara felt the weight of her power more acutely than ever.
Each night her green eyes scanned the city from the rooftops. She had learned to move like mist, unseen but felt. She had punished the cruel, protected the innocent, and earned the whispered loyalty of those who had once suffered under the crown's indifference. And yet, with every act of justice, a question grew louder in her mind. Who am I truly? One night, driven by a restless instinct she could not ignore, she left the city. The streets gave way to forest paths, and soon she arrived at a hidden valley, shrouded in silver mist. Ancient stones rose from the earth, carved with symbols that glimmered faintly in moonlight. Here, in the heart of the forest, the wolf felt a pull. A voice older than memory. The voice called her by name, soft and musical, weaving through her thoughts. Elara, you are of the wolf blood. You are the one the prophecy spoke of. The court will bow, kingdoms will tremble, but only you can guide the balance. Her paws trembled as she moved among the stones. G had never seen these ruins before, yet a deep familiarity settled in her chest. Her ancestors, she could feel them. Their courage, their pride, their mistakes, and with that, a new awareness of the curse within her. The wolf inside was not random. It was a gift, a responsibility, and a challenge all at once. The whisper continued. You will face choices no human should bear. Power alone cannot save those you love. Breaths alone cannot protect the kingdom. Your heart must guide your actions. Elara crouched beside the largest stone, tracing the carvings with her claws. Each symbol seemed to pulse in response to her touch, resonating with her own heartbeat. The wolf within her stirred, sensing a connection to something eternal, something sacred. For the first time, she understood the depth of her transformation. She was the bridge between human and myth, between justice and destiny. The night air shifted, and Elara sensed another presence. A figure emerged from the mist. Lord Kalen, the court magician, who had warned her of the dangers of her power. His eyes glimmered in the moonlight, thoughtful and cautious. You found the place, he said softly, the heart of your bloodline. Few who carry this power ever discover it, and fewer still survive it. Elara's green eyes narrowed. Why me? Why now? Kalen's expression was serious. Because the kingdom is in peril. The court is divided. The nobles are selfish, and corruption spreads like a disease. The wolf-blooded are born to challenge injustice, to guide the balance when power threatens to destroy itself. That is your curse, and your gift.
Elara growled softly, a sound of frustration and fear. I do not want to be a weapon.
I only want to protect my brother, and the people who cannot protect themselves. Then learn to wield it, Kalen said. Your heart will guide you, but your instincts, your wolf, will give you strength. If you do not learn, the curse may consume you entirely.
The words were heavy, but true.
Elara closed her eyes. The forest whispered around her. The stones thrummed with power. And for the first time, she felt her dual nature, human and wolf, merge in a single, coherent will. She was both predator and protector, justice and mercy. Meanwhile, back in the city, King Alaric could not focus on anything. His thoughts were consumed by the white wolf. He had tried to find her in the city, to understand her motives, to anticipate her actions, but she remained elusive, unpredictable, and impossibly powerful.
During a council meeting, nobles argued over taxes, land, and the rewards of the last tournament. Their voices clashed in greed and pride.
Alaric's eyes drifted toward the window. The moonlight was faint, but he imagined seeing a glimmer of white fur, the silhouette of the wolf standing atop the rooftops, watching. Dace, he felt unnerved. More than that, he felt drawn. He did not know why. He had ruled Valdora for decades, faced enemies, war, and treachery. Yet this creature, this white wolf, unsettled him in ways no sword or strategy ever had. Night after night, Alaric sent scouts to find the wolf. Each returned with only whispers, tracks in the marble, glimpses of shining eyes, paw prints glowing faintly in the dark. The city spoke of her as both protector and judge. And still, the king's fascination grew. Back in the forest, Elara's transformation into understanding deepened. She realized she could not simply punish the corrupt. She had to teach them restraint, to guide the kingdom toward balance. But that path was dangerous. Many nobles, if they discovered her identity, would attempt to capture or destroy her. Power in Valdora was never surrendered willingly. The forest shifted with a sudden wind, and Kalen stepped closer. "The prophecy also speaks of the king," he said, his voice low. "He will be part of your trials. Not as an enemy entirely, but as a mirror. You must decide, will you trust him or let suspicion and fear rule your heart?" Elara's fur rippled as the words sank in. She had sensed the king's presence countless times before. I see him calculate. And yet, something in her human heart stirred. A mixture of caution and curiosity, fear and longing. The night deepened, and the forest glimmered with the faint light of fireflies and ancient magic. Elara lifted her head to the sky. The moon was a silver disk, casting light on the forest floor, on her white fur, and on the path she had to walk. She was no longer a girl beaten in the ring. Dasis. She was a legend in the making, a force to be reckoned with. But she was also fragile, in ways the wolf could not protect. Her human heart still feared loss. Her human mind still doubted her strength. And her human soul still ached for understanding and connection. She knew she could not stay in the forest forever. The court would continue its schemes. The nobles would continue their corruption. And her brother, Rowan, needed her. With a deep exhale, she began her journey back toward the city, moving through the mist and trees with the grace of the predator she had become. The forest seemed to acknowledge her, bending branches gently aside as if bowing to her presence. The stones hummed softly, a quiet chorus of approval, and the whispers of her ancestors lingered in her mind. When she returned to the city, the streets were quiet again. She moved among the shadows, leaving faint paw prints that glimmered like moonlight on the cobblestones. The city felt different now, alive in ways it had not been before. She had changed, and the city was beginning to sense it. The nobles continued their plotting, unaware that every step they took was being watched. Some would fall under her silent judgment, some would learn the value of mercy, and some would provoke a power they could never control. King Alaric sat alone in his chambers that night, staring into the fire. He thought of the wolf, of the strange balance of fear and fascination he felt. He had faced many challenges in his life, but none like this. And for the first time he wondered if he could meet her, not as a king commanding obedience, but as a man seeking understanding. Alara, crouched on a rooftop nearby, sensed his gaze even before he acted. Her green eyes glimmered. The wolf inside her stirred at the challenge and the intrigue. She could feel the pull between them, cautious, tentative, but undeniable. She was a creature of instinct, yes, but the human in her recognized the complexity of trust, alliance, and something more she had not yet named. As the first rays of dawn crept over the horizon, Elara leapt from the rooftop, disappearing into the alleys of Valdora. The city awoke to rumors, whispers, and awe. The white wolf had returned to the court, carrying both justice and a warning. And somewhere, in the quiet corners of the palace, nobles who had mocked the fighter now trembled in fear and anticipation. Bus. For the wolf was not just a creature of legend. She was a force reshaping the kingdom, guiding the balance, and awakening something that even the king could not fully understand. Badeus. Alara paused at the edge of the city, watching the sunrise. Her fur shimmered like silver fire. Desk. She had power, wisdom, and courage, but she also had choices to make, alliances to consider, and a destiny she could not ignore. And in her heart, she knew that soon she would have to confront the king. Not as a wolf commanding fear, not as a fighter seeking revenge, but as someone who could challenge, inspire, and perhaps even change him. The prophecy whispered again through the mist. The white wolf will rise. The court will bow. The heart must guide the hand, and love may yet temper power. Elara lifted her head, letting the wind sweep through her fur. Her human heart beat steadily beneath the wolf's strength. The city was hers to protect, and the balance of the kingdom rested on her choices. The hunt for justice, truth, and understanding had entered its next chapter. And the court, along with the king, would soon learn that the white wolf was not just a guardian, but a force of destiny itself. The blood-red moon rose over Valdora, casting long shadows across the city's towers and streets. The court, once orderly and proud, now trembled under an invisible tension. Rumors had spread like wildfire of a noble plotting treachery, using the chaos of the White Wolf's presence to claim the throne for himself. The kingdom teetered on the edge of civil war, and no sword, no army could calm the unrest. Only one force could restore balance, and that force was Elara. She crouched atop a palace tower, her white fur glowing faintly in the moonlight, eyes scanning the city below. The streets were alive with whispers, guards patrolling nervously, and nobles retreating behind locked doors. Her paws flexed, claws glinting, but her human mind weighed every choice. She could not simply unleash her full power. She had to act with strategy and care. Scalan, the court magician, emerged from the shadows, robes flowing, eyes sharp and cautious. "The noble has gathered an army," he warned. "They will strike at dawn. If you face them alone, even you could be overwhelmed." Elara's green eyes narrowed. "I am not alone," she said softly. "I have the wolf. I have my instincts. I have my heart."
Balin studied her.
"The heart will guide you, yes, but it is the wolf that will protect you from the storm. You must balance both, or everything will be lost."
The wolf inside her stirred at his words.
Power pulsed through her veins, ancient and unstoppable. But she also felt the fragility of human desire, the need to protect her brother, to see justice done, to trust in those who might prove allies. At the same time, high in the royal balcony, King Alaric watched. He had seen the white wolf countless times, admired her strength, and even feared her power. Yet something deeper had grown, curiosity, respect, and an unspoken bond that neither fully understood. Tonight, he realized, was not a moment to observe. It was a moment to act. The city shook as the enemy forces advanced, banners dark against the moonlit streets. Nobles, loyal to the traitor, marched in a silent, confident line expecting victory. But the people of Valdora, inspired by the whispered legend of the White Wolf, quietly fled or hid, leaving the streets eerily empty. Elara leapt from the tower, landing silently in the midst of the enemy army. Her eyes blazed, fur shining like silver fire. She moved with supernatural speed, her claws slicing through weapons and armor, but never with unnecessary cruelty. Each strike incapacitated rather than killed. Each movement strategic rather than chaotic. She was not just a force of power, she was a force of justice. The nobles were thrown into chaos. Guards faltered, soldiers stumbled, and whispers of fear and awe rippled through the ranks. "It's the wolf!" some cried. "The white wolf has come!" From the shadows, Kalen used his magic to create illusions, drawing the enemy into traps and disorienting their forces. Together, they moved with precision, each aware of the other's presence and intent. And then, unexpectedly, King Alaric stepped into the streets. He did not wear armor but simple robes, carrying only a ceremonial sword, the weight of the crown on his shoulders and the resolve of a man ready to face the unknown. Elara paused mid-stride. Her green eyes met his, and in that moment no words were needed. The king had chosen to fight beside her, not as an opponent, not as a ruler demanding obedience, but as an equal willing to face the storm.
The battle began in earnest. Clashing steel and shouts echoed across the empty streets.
Elora moved like lightning, weaving through the enemy ranks, while the wolf within her guided each action, sensing danger before it arrived. Alaric fought with courage and skill, protecting the people and keeping the enemy distracted, trusting the white wolf to lead. It was not a fight for survival alone. It was a test of hearts and minds. Elara's human judgment balanced the wolf's instinct. Alaric's respect for her allowed him to trust her power. Together they became more than predator and king. They became a force neither treachery nor ambition could overcome. Hours passed, yet the red moon hung in the sky, unwavering. And then, as dawn approached, the tide of battle shifted. The traitorous noble, realizing his forces were crumbling, attempted a final attack on the king. He rushed forward, sword raised, eyes wild with desperation. Elara's senses screamed. In one leap she was between them. Her fur shimmered, eyes blazing emerald. With a sweep of her powerful body, the noble was thrown to the ground, his sword clattering uselessly away. He scrambled to flee, but the wolf's low growl stopped him, trembling with both human and ancient authority.
"You will harm no one else," she said, her voice calm but commanding.
The noble trembled, knowing he could not escape the judgment of the wolf and the human heart behind her. The battle ended as the first rays of sunlight touched the city. Soldiers surrendered. Nobles who had plotted quietly disappeared, or bent to acknowledge the strength and justice of the white wolf. And at the center of it all, Elara shifted, transforming from wolf to human before the king's eyes. Alaric studied her, awe and respect shining in his gaze. She was no longer just a legend. She was real, human, and myth intertwined. Her green eyes held the fire of battle and the gentleness of mercy.
"You have changed everything,"
he said softly. Not through force alone, but through courage and wisdom. I see now what the kingdom needs. And what you are. Ellar's heart thumped. She had feared this moment. Exposure, vulnerability, and trust. But she also felt relief. She had balanced her wolf and human sides, her power and heart. And it had succeeded. I did what I had to, she said. Not for glory, not for fear, but for justice and for those who cannot defend themselves. Alaric nodded. And yet, you have inspired loyalty, hope, and awe, perhaps more than any king could. The city of Valdora began to awaken around them. Period. Streets once filled with whispers of fear now carried stories of the white wolf who had saved the kingdom. People emerged cautiously, eyes wide, hearts full of gratitude. The legend had become reality, and the city had changed forever. Elara turned her gaze to the horizon, thinking of her brother. But she had protected him. But she also knew her journey was far from over. The wolf inside her would always be part of her, a reminder of her heritage, her strength, and her purpose.
Alaric stepped closer. You could stay in the court, he said softly.
Psst. You could guide the kingdom, teach the nobles, or you could leave and shape the world beyond these walls. Whatever you choose, know this, you have my respect and my trust. Elara smiled faintly, a mixture of relief, pride, and something more she had not fully understood until now.
I will choose carefully, she said. The kingdom must be protected, but my heart must guide me.
That is the true test. The king extended his hand. Bulls. She hesitated, then placed hers in his, not as a subject to a ruler, nor a wolf to a man, but as two beings who had faced chaos and emerged stronger. Dens. Kaelin appeared silently at the edge of the courtyard, watching. The prophecy is fulfilled, he whispered, but balance is not an end. It is a beginning. Elara nodded, Understanding, her power, her heart, her wolf, all were part of her destiny. Betrayal and chaos, and she had emerged whole. But the world was wide, the court was cunning, and the future would always demand courage, wisdom, and heart. The white wolf lifted her head to the sky one last time. Moonlight glimmered on her silver fur, her human heart beating steadily beneath it. The city below was safe, for now. The nobles had learned respect, the people had hope, and the king had discovered a force beyond his understanding. And in that quiet dawn, Elara realized something deeper. Her journey had always been about more than revenge or justice. It had been about transformation, embracing who she truly was, balancing power with heart, and trusting herself to shape the world she had sworn to protect. And for the first time, neither human nor wolf was afraid. There was understanding, respect, and the faintest spark of something neither had expected. A bond forged through chaos, courage, and destiny. The city of Valdora would remember this day. The white wolf had risen, the court had bowed, and a new legend had begun. And for Elara, the girl who had once been beaten in the fighting ring, the journey was no longer about survival. It was about choice, balance, and the promise of a future she could shape with her own hands and heart. The wolf inside her purred softly. The human heart within her soared. Together they walked forward, ready for whatever the next chapter would bring.